Hello and welcome to the 25th episode of the SaintsPrime Podcast. It's with me, Ollie, and
Harry.
Yeah, Mikey.
Mikey. Awesome. Thanks for joining it. How's your week been, guys?
It's been
Tiring.
alright, to be fair.
Anything of
Yeah.
note, or should we
I've joined the gym
join the gym? Nice.
after the Leicester loss, so hopefully that should be fun.
output some of that anger. Is that it kind of
And some of that bread as well, for my idea.
and that bread.
Yeah.
Mikey, anything interesting this
Long
week?
story.
Interesting stories? Anything to report?
I went to work.
Went to work. Well,
That's
okay.
about it.
Well, that's as
Great
fun as it
fun.
gets. Okay. Well, we'll go straight into questions then if we've got nothing. Okay.
How was your week, Ollie, actually? No one
Not
asked
great.
you
I
that
never
question.
actually get asked, do I know? Well, I'm complaining to you lot about a terrible trip I had today. I had to go up for 6-4, which is pretty much pointless, but I won't bore you with that. Well, I'm sure the questions we've got, Harry, are much more interesting.
Well, hey!
I mean,
First one from Dan Hersett,
Oh,
96.
a legend.
Do you think Ward-Prowse could still, let's say, have an affair with Ralph's wife and still get into the starting 11? Before we continue, I did a little poll. 127 people said James Ward-Prowse should start against Man City, compared to 241 that said no. So what do you think?
Good little stat burst then, Harry. To the actual question.
Yeah.
I'll try and make it somewhat serious.
Not in a literal sense, but let's change the question.
No, let's take this in a literal sense, shall we? All right.
Do I think? Well, I think there must be. I think Ralph must just have his favourites that he trusts, and I wouldn't be surprised if he has to get some sort of youth player into the squad, because you kind of think if Ward-Prowse comes out, who's a youth player that's still in the squad? There's no one else really, is there?
No.
I mean, half are injured, half of them aren't good enough. Well, not half, but you know what I mean. Some aren't good enough, some are injured. So if you take Ward-Prowse out, it's almost like admitting defeat that our youth system isn't good enough anymore. So maybe it's something from the board or something like that saying we need a youth player in there. He's also kind of a golden boy, but I think people kind of fall in that favour just because you had a good run to the end of the season doesn't qualify you to have a bad last 10 games that he's played. You know, I think people should be given an equal chance. So, yeah, that's my 2 cents. Your guys' thoughts?
No, I think that's pretty much it. I think it also depends what job he's being asked to do, because if it is just run around, press the ball, and then try and hit it up long, then I think he's doing his job all right.
Yeah.
But I think it is the fact that he doesn't really create much on the pitch. He's not a flair player to watch, so fans prefer him. If he's not performing and not scoring goals, then the fans don't want him on the pitch. While players like your Boufal, your Ings, like all these players, if they're not performing, then they get another chance because they're the flair players, they're the exciting players to watch. If they do have a little bit of skill, that's worth going to the game to see it taken past 3 or 4. So I think that's the reason why as well, because he's a worker in that midfield. He's not a fancy playmaker like a David Silva or something like that to watch. So
when do you think he's at his most successful? What position and what style do you play him in?
that's the problem, because towards the end of last season, you're thinking, we finally found a position that Ward-Prowse
Attacking
can play
playmaker.
in.
That's what we were thinking, wasn't it?
And it's gone back to another one where is his natural position? Because he could play 3 or 4 positions in the same game.
I think
so. It's
a nice way to sum it up is that he's a bit of a jack of all trades, but a master of none.
Yeah. That
idea that he hasn't actually mastered a position yet. And really, in the place that we are, if you're a professional footballer starting to, 23, 24, you need to start hitting some sort of form. You need to kind of qualify what your actual position is. And it's good enough being a kind of multifunctional kind of player, but that may mean that you can't be in the team because there's no specific place for you, and you may just be a squad player and filling in where you can. It might mean he might have to fall out of the team if he doesn't find a position for himself. Harry, any thoughts?
Well, I think that's fair enough. To be fair, I think you two pretty much explained it very well. I don't really have anything to add because that's sort of all the things I was thinking and more. To be fair, so next one from Gavi and Wilbur. He says, should we give more chances to our youth players after our recent performances?
To be fair, you two are much more clued up on the under 23s and people like that than I am. Is there anyone from there that you'd like to see that be called up?
I'd like to see Slattery and Smallbone get given a chance, as well as Vokins as well, especially because we don't have a left back at the moment. I think
Yeah.
Vokins, now that he's fit and he's playing for the under-23s again, I think he deserves a chance as well. But it's difficult because of the division that they were playing in last year. It was quite easy for them. We should never have got relegated from the first division in the first place.
No,
So it was quite
especially
easy.
yeah.
Like it was quite easy for them to get promoted again and sort of work their way back up. But I think.
Do you think that will help with confidence though, getting a promotion with the?
Yeah, that probably does help. But I think the one to really look out for is a lad called Dan Anderley, who is a big lad up top, very quick, good and agile as well, and he's scoring a lot of the goals this season. I think he should be given a chance. I think he made onto the bench against United as well, didn't he?
I believe so, yeah.
So,
he made onto the bench once, I believe it was against United, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Anything for you to add to this?
I'm thinking the same, to be fair, but I think Vokins is probably the closest because we don't have a left back at the moment because Bertrand's suspended. And this is his time to make his mark because I don't know if Højbjerg we put back at left wing back, and I don't know why it would be. To be honest with you, I'd put if Vokins is fully fit, I'd put Vokins in there because genuinely, what is the worst that can happen?
Yeah.
Smallbone, I've not seen too much of the same with Slattery, but Slattery's been called up to the England under-20s, I believe, so he must have quite a bit of quality around him. My only sort of thing with our under-23s is they only normally sort of show up when they play at St Mary's. When it's at Staplewood or the other grounds, the other youth academy grounds, they don't really put in that level of performance. Maybe because they enjoy playing in front of a crowd, and then that there's something to fight for. Because I was in a lecture theatre with a bunch of people from football, and one of them was a youth player from Chelsea, and he sort of indicated that when it's at under 23 level, there doesn't really seem any sort of pressure. So that probably if you look into their performance, that probably reduces their, the quality of performance because they don't have the pressure to succeed. Because then when you look at like the leasing.com trophy, that I know I'm going off a bit of a tangent, but it does all link together.
Yeah.
When they're in front of a crowd, but also against men in so full professionals, even if it's in League One or League Two, that's when they know that that's their time to shine and their time to show up. So then they bring it up a level. So I'm interested to see, because even though we're second to bottom, it doesn't mean we've got poor youth products. It means maybe in some areas we're struggling. But I think Vokins should be given a chance. And that's another thing I did a poll on just before we started.
Cool.
244 said yes, compared to 152 that said no. So most people think Vokins should be given a chance.
The only problem with Vokins starting on the weekend is it is sort of a baptism of fire. Again, you're playing away at Man City, probably the second best team in England at the moment.
Ooh.
And like it could be a baptism of fire, or if he has a good performance, it could be a real confidence boost, and he could really kick on from
I
that.
think we said a couple of weeks ago that someone said, "Oh, throw them in the deep end, and we'll get a good performance." Someone said that again at home. I can't remember. I think you said it, Tiz. There's no easy game.
I said about Dan. I said about Dan. So
yeah, you said you wanted to see him at centre back, and said there's no easy game. So yeah, I'd edge on the side of caution. But again, there is the argument to try him out, because when is the best game to play him in? When there's even more pressure on the team, or almost do it against a throwaway game against Man City, which you can kind of say, well, worst comes to worst, we knew we weren't going to get much out of the game.
Yeah, I was from what I said from back then. I said we don't have anything to lose against Chelsea because we're probably not going to get a positive result. So changing it could only do good. We didn't change it. We conceded 4. So I don't imagine Danso could have done much worse than any of our other players. So maybe Vokins, because he's our only natural left back, this could be his time. Hopefully it is, but we'll wait and see.
Yeah. Is there any more questions, Tiz?
We've got Ollie Bell. Do we need Lamina back?
No.
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 No, I think he's the last thing we kind of need with the upset and lack of squad morale at the moment. I really don't think we need him in the team. That's
Yeah,
my-
Probably ability-wise, probably, but
yeah.
mentality-wise, he just won't fit the squad. He needs to be playing European football because otherwise he's not happy. If he's not happy, he's not going to play the way that he can play. So,
True.
When the tough gets going, the going gets tough.
There we go.
When the
Motivational
going gets
speaking.
tough, the tough gets going.
There we go.
Well
That's
done.
better.
Got it eventually.
Yeah.
And so I don't think he'd want to perform or play.
I can see, yeah,
this
like
sort of
Mikey
area.
said, the quality that he provides. On a good day, you could say, yeah, we could do with that quality, but are we going to get that from him? Is that guaranteed? I don't really think so. Is it worth the risk? I'm not sure. Are we happy where we are at the moment? No, but is it worth the risk? I don't think so.
No, I wouldn't say so.
Yeah. Questions?
Ben _Crozzer, would relegation necessarily be a bad thing? That's his question.
We said this midweek, didn't we? Did we have this conversation?
I
think
we
we
had
did.
it at
So
the end of the lesson.
No,
we had it after the podcast finished. We did.
Yeah.
We did have the conversation. As
So
well.
I think we came to the general, without taking words out of you guys' mouth, I think we said the general conclusion is no, it's not a good idea. Although it's a nice reality, so many teams have gone down. Tiz, name a few that have gone down thinking they'll go straight back up.
Stoke, probably Leeds years ago. You got Sheffield Wednesday's massive and they're still down there.
Mm-hmm.
There's plenty more. West Brom, Sunderland,
who went down to
Wigan,
Leeds, yeah.
Portsmouth. That's at least 7 that we've named.
Mm-hmm.
Who've gone down.
Go down, get the big names off, and come back up again.
It's not always bright. The problem is you've got those examples, but then you've also got the examples of Burnley and Norwich and Fulham who have bounced up and down, and they have done it like quite well in that way. So it depends with how the clubs run. If we do go down, it depends how the clubs run, what we do, what transfers we bring in, and how we try and form this squad.
Mm.
Well, it's either you just get the money off the books in the first year and you take the parachute payments down and you just bring it all in, or you spend those 3 years getting the parachute payments, investing them in the squad and taking a risk in those 3 years that you will get promoted. Yeah. It just depends what the club does, whether they want to take their time in the Championship, try and run it properly and then try and push for promotion, or if in those 3 years it's so important to get back into the Premier League that we take the risk and then risk doing a Sunderland or a Portsmouth thing, getting relegated.
So
that's true. Because it is that losing mentality. Once you've got that losing mentality, you will continue it, and you saw that quite well. I don't know if people watch the Sunderland documentary, but you saw it quite well in that documentary. That with the losing mentality, players just went off the cliff, and you could see how dire some of the mentality of those players were by the end of that Championship season that saw them go down again.
Yeah, and then although it's not a great idea, we did end up naming who we think would stay and who we wouldn't, didn't we? So yes. Would you quickly want to run through who we think, if we had to kind of think of a starting 11 quickly? I know it's not a great thing, but we kind of said this midweek, so it shouldn't be too difficult. So we kind of said Gunn would probably go.
Yep. I think both Gunn and McCarthy would go, and we'd have to buy another goalkeeper.
But
Bertrand would go. Vokins would probably stay.
Yeah. 2 centre backs. We kind of said Stevens
and someone else.
You could have Christoph Clara, couldn't you?
Yeah.
They seem like, I think for a centre back pair in the Championship, I reckon Stevens would be actually quite good.
Only problem with Clara is that he hasn't been proven yet, so that would be a little bit of a risk.
Right back, do you reckon Valerie would stay? Cedric would obviously be off.
I don't know. It depends how Valerie does at the end of the season, because at the moment I don't think any Premier League club.
Well, you could have a back four of Vokins, Clara, Stevens, Valerie, and then flat 4-4-2. Do you reckon Ward-Prowse would go, or would we keep
That's
him?
a difficult one. That is a really difficult one.
Okay.
Yeah.
But who else?
I would see one of Højbjerg or Ward-Prowse staying. I would not see both of them stay.
No. Okay. Who would you think?
I think Højbjerg would leave, and I think Prowse would probably stay.
Okay. Well, you could have Reed's Championship at the moment, and if he came back on loan, you could have Reed and Ward-Prowse in the centre mid, couldn't you?
Yeah.
Right wing. Have we got anyone on right wing?
Would you see Redmond going?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Even
even a newly
Everton
promoted team.
or what? Yeah.
Like, you think if a new team came up, like a Leeds or something, if they did it this year, it might be a decent buy for them.
The one that would be interesting to see if Ings would go or not, because he is one of our own, but he is a proven Premier League striker. So if someone paid the money, then I'm sure, and he's English as well. So
yeah,
we can
Depends
get
if he
quite
gets
a bit.
injured from now to the end of the season.
That's true.
I think that's what it depends on.
So do we have any
contract.
Shane Long up front? Shane Long could go up front. Shane Long and Obafemi up front.
Out of contract in the summer, Shane Long.
That's the thing. Like, you look at the teams that went down and stayed down. You look at, like you said, Sunderland, Portsmouth, Leeds. Who else do we talk about? Wigan. They were all, and Stoke, so that's 5. They were all teams that stayed in the Premier League for quite a prolonged period, went down, stayed down. When you look at Norwich, Burnley, and teams like that, and West Brom, they're always in between the two Premier League Championship. Every 2 years they'll be up and then go down, and go up and go down. That's the sort of thing, because we've sort of sustained as quite a solid Premier League team. Will we follow the same route as the teams like Sunderland, Wigan, etc., that have been in the Premier League for quite a few years, and when they went down, they stayed down? So it'll be interesting. Hopefully we'll stay up. We won't have to worry about it. But
that's a little glimpse at what our Championship side could look like. So is there any other questions, Tiz?
We have got. If we start it, we'll save that for the Manchester City one.
Okay.
Someone else said Armstrong in. So I imagine I'm going to put a question mark about that. So Armstrong in.
Yes, I want to see it. I want to see what he can offer. I think we've tried a lot of different possibilities this season. What's the harm in trying Armstrong? Well, you kind of said it a couple weeks ago. I think we keep on saying it. Why don't we give it a go? I don't know. Do you have thoughts?
Pretty much it.
Yeah. We're getting it all sorted today, aren't we? We're quite concise today. Yeah, but I think
nearly 10 o'clock.
Yeah, we are recording this a bit late. It's literally 10 o'clock at the moment. But yeah, so sorry if we're a little bit blunt today. But
it's exactly 10, actually.
It is. That's why I say exactly 10.
_Froza with another question. What should be our aims for this season now?
Short term. Look at the short term, get a short term fix, and assess the long term afterwards. By the time we're sustainable and on a decent period of form before we start deciding long term achievements at the end of the season.
What would you say short term? Would you say like
out of the relegation?
3 wins in the next 5? Would you just go like that, or? Well, I don't know the next 5 fixtures, but is that how short term?
Man City, Everton, Arsenal, I think.
I'd say
Arsenal,
in the
Watford, Norwich, I believe. I
think in that run by the Watford, Norwich, Watford are bottom of the league, Norwich are there or thereabouts. I think by that time, if we still haven't picked up points against them, because you can say, top 6, you're unlikely to get points, but against people that are around you, if you're not picking up the 3 points there, that's where you're in trouble. I think if we can try and get to a point where we're out of the relegation zone and at a relatively comfortable bit, because at the end of the season we were out of the relegation zone, but we felt comfortable. You guys felt that, but under Ralph we were playing good football, and even though we were like 2 points above the relegation zone, there was a confidence within the players, which I think probably kept us up. So if we can get to a point of confidence above the relegation zone, then you can start planning more longer term to try and have an upward progression. But I think at the moment it's build the confidence, sustainable point, and just kind of get above the relegation zone.
Yeah.
What would you guys say?
Yeah, I think that's fair. The 5 fixtures that I said were indeed our next 5. So it's a difficult
fantastic memory, Tizzo.
Yeah, I know. I've looked at it enough in the past few days to show my friends how we're in quite deep trouble at points. But but how it's also like a really good chance against Everton, Watford, and Norwich. If those aren't 6 pointers, I don't know what are.
Yeah,
to be honest.
Yeah, it's true.
So what are the aims? Just staying up again, would you say, long term? Like for this season, we'll say for the season. What is the aim? If you
had to judge it right now, and Ralph was in a meeting tomorrow, they'd say stay up again, wouldn't you? At this point where we are at the moment, but 10 games down the line, if we've picked up a few points, couple of upsets, And with 15th, it may be let's push for a mid-table. You know, it can all change. It can all go crazy. It can all go different. You know, Crystal Palace might go shooting down the league and we pick points up against them. I don't know. It could be. You know, you never know with football, do you? That's the thing.
That's the exciting bit.
Yeah, I know. But that's the thing. There could be a million possibilities between now and 10 games time. So to try and assess the long term what our plan should be, it depends when you want to judge it. But at the moment, today, you'd say get out of relegation. But you know, it depends what happens.
Yeah, so I was talking to one of my Aston Villa friends down here, and he's probably one of the most. He's a lovely guy, but he's definitely one of the most biased Aston Villa fans I've ever heard in my life. Coming out with stuff like Jack Grealish is better than Maddison, but he was talking about how good Aston Villa are, quite obviously, and lots of people have been hyping up Aston Villa. But I looked at the table and I showed him you're only 3 points above us, and we've just lost 9-0 to Leicester, and we've been bashed around by a few other teams. We're only 10 games in, you know. Anything can happen. Palace are what, 6th? They're not going to stay there. They're going to change. So someone else has got to fill that slot. So the table's still got a long way to go. So definitely. I think it's difficult. I understand the question, but
definitely.
It's a long way to go.
Yeah. Any other questions, Sis?
Right. So we have the kickoff tactic is so wrong. Why do we still use it?
No, I don't know.
Give the ball away every time. It's the Dan Hersett sandwich, because we started with Dan Hersett, and that is the last Dan Hersett question.
Because, and I'm sorry to cut you off, Mikey, but I am going to rant here, so you will have to bear with me.
Give me a second, just go.
Yeah. Mikey's actually left at the point.
It's fine. I don't need.
No.
I can pick up on it.
The problem is, and I do generally get worried about this with Ralph, I think he will. It seems like we purposely give up. Maybe it's just we don't work it correctly, but I think we generally give away possession to back in higher places and start the press up high. I don't know whether that's us just failing to be able to convert long passes, or we do give away the ball high intentionally to win it back high, press high, force mistakes and score. Because maybe in the Bundesliga against weaker opposition that might happen, but I think in the Premier League you have to maintain possession at home. You have to be comfortable on the ball. So I don't know whether we are just low in confidence. We can't do those top balls. Maybe we don't have a target man. But yeah, it looks like to me the intention is to lose the ball up high, press, and then go again. I mean, that's what it looks like. Maybe it's just not working right, but that's almost what it looks like.
It looks like the first. It's weird, because you would have thought that if the way that we probably should press, and we do start games like this, the way that we probably should press is the ball to go over the top of the defence. But it does look like our centre-backs, when the ball goes back to them, it's usually Yoshida who goes to lump it forward. They always look for the striker. But if you've got like Danny Ings up top or Shea Adams, they're probably not going to win the header against big Premier League centre-backs. So it's just, it does seem like a weird way of starting it. Especially if we don't get the numbers forwards along with the striker as well. There's no one to flick it down to or flick it onto.
Who was Ralph's target man when he was at his previous team?
Yusuf Pelusson.
Ooh. And what sort of, was he a target man? Was he?
He was 6'4" and pretty quick, so you know he is a proper target man. But
yeah.
It's like we've been linked with Jean Mateta, isn't it? Who plays for Frankfurt in the Bundesliga. We linked with him in the summer, and I think we're being linked with him in January as well. And he's a big lad who can play up top. So, like, I think if we bring him in, and that's the reason why I'd love to see Dan Andalou actually get given a chance, because I think he's about 6'2", and he looks like he could hold his own.
But a little bit of strength behind him. Yeah, I agree with that.
I think that he could be given a go, but the problem is Ings is in such fine form that you don't really want to drop him.
No. Yeah. Oh yeah, I get what you mean. It seems like we've always kind of played through crosses and wingers, and at the moment, our current changing the managers, we don't really have a clear style at the moment. And I guess it's better that Ralph is kind of keeping his tactics secret, but whereas we've been a little bit open with our tactics and our scouting network with our black box and kind of showing off about that and then it being exposed. But I still can't really see a definitive tactic, because you don't need a tactic to be completely secret for it to still work. Man City are going to hold on to possession well, and that Liverpool are going to press. They do that game in, game out, but I guess it's the quality makes the difference, but I still can't see a real definitive tactic at the moment. Maybe that's just me.
We do look like just a more attractive version of Burnley, because when we pump it up the field, we try and get the ball back rather than just sit deep.
Yeah, we've got pretty European players instead of their hard English players. That's the problem.
Yeah. You know what I mean.
Rough Englishmen.
You know what I mean.
Nothing fancy. No, just no nonsense. Yeah.
So shall we move on to City? If all the questions are done.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
So we had a scout at the game, didn't we, Tizard?
Yeah, we did. Our resident.
Yeah.
Now handing over to resident match correspondent Harry Tizard, who was at the City game. Harry, what can you tell us?
It was a difficult game. Programme class, £2.50. You'll have to see it. But I always get a programme when it's a Saints game or any game.
Game Harry, get
anyway,
round.
I'm building the context.
Yeah.
But first half, we really struggled. We sat very deep, conceded twice. Shane Long and Buffon are two outlets. Shane Long won everything against Eric Garcia, who did have a class game, to be fair, for Manchester City. But there was no one running in beyond. It seems like you said, we just punt it long and reset into our defensive strategy. And in the first half, although we did concede twice and one probably due to an error, we did defend in a way quite solidly. With that back three, Danso, Stevens, and Bednarek just put their bodies on the line, which was really good to see. And I know that's what you expect from players, but it's still something that we haven't necessarily seen the whole season. And it was good because I know Manchester City didn't feel the full strength side, but they still had Jesus starting, they still had Aguero starting, they still had top European international starting. So it was tough, and it's good to see us score. But then again, we scored in 8 of our last 9 or 9 of our last 10 at the Etihad. So
yeah,
that wasn't our problem. It's the keeping them out that was the main problem.
Yeah. Breaking down the goals, what did you see? Was there any causes of concern with the goals that we conceded?
Well, it was difficult from my level because I was on row H at the opposite sides of the field the first half. So everything seems quite not two-dimensional. But, ball goes across the box and you just have to look at the net to see if it rustles. But it was that sort of case of you could see it coming. It was just waiting for that moment. And sadly, we didn't pick up Bernardo Silva at the edge of the box. He got too much time. And a player of that quality, all he has to do is chip it into the box. He knows where Otamendi is, and he nods home. And it's difficult.
I think that first goal, it was a very simple corner routine. It was literally just played one to the edge of the box. Buffon, who had gone over to mark the man on the corner, did not press highly. It was a very lazy press where he ran towards him, but he knew he didn't really want to block it, and the ball just got crossed into the box. And Otamendi got over Bednarek way too easily. It didn't look like Bednarek put in a challenge, and Romeo was just standing behind him, not putting in a challenge either. So it did just seem like quite an easy goal, especially with how he defended to that point where we did look kind of solid and they weren't really trying to breaking us down. To concede from a very simple corner routine would have been very frustrating for Ralph.
Yeah.
And that's something that I do want to it does seem weird how we do defend corners where we line our 3 centre backs up to have a run on them. That does just seem a little bit strange.
Yeah.
Zone away.
To be fair, I haven't really seen too much of the clips for the corners, but yeah, it does seem like a weak point, or maybe it's something that oppositions are focusing on and kind of. I think it seems as soon as we concede a goal, it's heads turning around at other players and no one really taking not credit. What's the word I'm looking for?
Responsibility.
Take personal responsibility in the issues.
Okay.
Yeah, credit's not the one that you want.
No, that's not a responsibility. Is the word I was looking for. Yeah. It seems. Yeah. You look at Danso and Stevens just looking at each other when Aguero is right in the middle of them. Well, someone should have the responsibility to pick up that man and make sure that the pressure, it's pressure or tackle or something, just to make sure someone picks him up, because I know on the radio they're saying that Danso was 2 yards off him and should have really come across. But yeah, or maybe that's just Danso and Stevens not playing before. I don't know.
For the second goal, it was Danso's fault, because the way that it did, it was down the right hand side, pull back across the box. I think Carl Walker pulled it across the box, and Stevens had moved from Aguero to Foden. Benrek went to the cross. Stevens moved to Foden to pick him up because he was the man at the near post, and Danso should have moved across to the man at the far post, which was Aguero, and Danso just didn't pick him up. I don't know if it was a communication error or Danso just not thinking that he was his man, but it was Danso who had just left him in complete and naked space. Because the thing is, if that Stevens did his job, but if that ball goes to Foden, Stevens blocks it. But because it goes to Aguero, Danso's left him completely free. That was
Any
very, very easy finish.
So between the Leicester and the Man City game, now we're not covering the Leicester game because we did a reaction after the game, which actually went down really well, I think. If you guys want to see that more, we'll definitely try and produce that, because the reaction we got off that was really good, something we haven't seen before. But the reason we haven't covered that, but between the Leicester and the Man City game, Mikey, I know you said something about after the game, Southampton in a press conference or a message from Southampton talked about change. Is there something that you want us to talk about in that area?
It was just the coaching setup, like the coaching setup. So all the coach. I went on the Southampton website to see what the coaches are actually described as, and how they've actually, like, do they have certain roles that they do? But it just seems like that they're all just general first team assistant coaches. That's what they go under. Doesn't seem like Ralph has like a first team coach, an assistant coach, and then different coaches for different areas. You've got one goalkeeping coach, one head of sports science, and then the rest of them are just general first team assistant coaches.
Well, how many assistant coaches are actually outfield players? Because I know.
Well, we've got 4. So Richard, I'm not even going to pronounce. Well, Kits Biltche or something like that. He came from Salzburg. He was one of the ones that came from Salzburg. Craig Fleming, who came in 2015, he came through the academy.
Right.
So he's sort of one of our own. Dave Watson, who was a goalkeeping coach, he's now become a coach. And Kelvin Davis, who was from the academy, and then he got called up when things weren't looking good. Wasn't it under Pellegrino that he got called up?
Yeah, I think so.
It was Pellegrino Hughes' time that he got called up. And so we've got out of the 6 5 coaches that we've actually got, 3 of them are ex-goalkeepers. So
I think that's a little bit. I don't think you need to be the best analysis in the world there to see that's a little bit strange to have, that many goalkeeping coaches. I mean, where's the improvement to the defence coming from? Which coach is going to specifically go home and work on that and try and find a reason how to solidify that defence? When you've got 3 goalkeeping coaches, you want someone who's defended for all their life, don't you? You don't want this just to be sorted by getting up some YouTube videos and trying to work out how to make it better. You want someone who's naturally knows how to play defence and sort it out.
It's also the fact that, so I think there was an article that came out that was saying like the players at Southampton are missing Danny Roll. The old assistant manager that Ralph had, who left in the summer for Bayern Munich. And like they're saying that the players are missing Danny Roll, and I was thinking, like, are all of the coaches that Ralph have employed yes men? Is the reason why form has dipped or the players liked him is because Danny Roll sort of challenged Ralph in a way?
Yeah.
And actually speak to him and try and make him think instead of just saying, yes, we'll do that. Because it does seem like, how many times do you see coaches get up with Ralph on the sideline and talking to him?
When he seemed completely on his own in the Leicester game. It didn't seem like anyone would come up and say, right, let's scrap the 5 at the back, let's bite the bullet and let's try and get a goal back. None of them are putting any input in. They're all just sat down.
And like it'll be a lot better if you have coaches that actually challenge and try and improve a coach and like help a coach than just say, oh yeah, no, we'll do that, and just sit back on their chair getting paid. Because like you got like these coaches are also working with Ralph. They're a team. They can't just be individuals picking up their. They are the same team that the starting 11 is and the full squad is. That they are a team in themselves. So they have to help each other out. So I don't know if it's just on a match day. Maybe Ralph has told them to not come out into the technical area or something like that.
Yeah.
But it does seem like that Ralph's just on his own and he doesn't have any help from the backroom staff. And it is quite sad to see that. So maybe that's what some of the changes are going to bring. They're actually going to bring in some of Ralph's coaches
Hopefully,
that he
yeah.
wants, and maybe get rid of a couple of the few.
Because
like these coaches have been with us for 4 or 5 years now, and they've been part of the decline from what it has from Pellegrino to Ralph. Like they've been part of that decline. So maybe it's time for a switch up. Maybe it's time for a change. You get a couple of new coaches.
Because there's something rotten somewhere, isn't there? But we just quite haven't figured out where it is yet.
Yeah.
But I don't know really where it is. I mean, we're taking our best guesses, but we don't really know where it is, do we?
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's kind of. Any other slight thoughts on the Man City game? Just because I realised we've got another Man City game to cover before we finish.
Well, it's just third goal was an unlucky deflection. Maybe McCarthy could have come out and tried to gather it, but Aguero reacted quicker than both Danso and Stevens. But I thought Stevens' header from the corner, good header.
Good header.
Flying was an absolute bullet, I must say.
Yeah. Did you have to, because you were in the home end, weren't you, Tiz? Did you have a little fist bump?
I contained myself. Thing is, like it was 3-0 with 15 minutes to go. If it was like 3-2, here we go sort of thing. It was 3-1, and even then, I still thought, we're pressing it. We could get a second and maybe a third. But I think I behaved admirably in the home end, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
There's 1 or 2 times which I showed my displeasure, forgetting that I was around some Manchester City ticket holders.
Yeah,
I'll say.
But yeah, okay. So we've got another Man City game to cover. We're talking about progress, and we ranted on for quite a while after the Leicester game about progress and reactions. It's now the next league game after the Leicester game. What are we looking out of this game? Because we've got to say our odds are stacked against us going into it. We've almost had a trial run. Do we do what we did in the Cup and say, right, this time we're not going to make any mistakes. We're going to be solid this time? Do we create more of an attacking outlet and go toe-to-toe? What do you think is the right way to do it?
So last season when we went up to City under Hughes wanted to go toe-to-toe. Yeah. I think wasn't it? This is the one where Hoyt's come out and said that Hughes scrapped everything that they did in the last week and said play like Liverpool. Yeah. So we tried to play like Liverpool, tried to press out of 5 minutes of talking, and we got slapped 5-1. So I think that sort of happens when you try and challenge the top teams. So it's difficult because if you challenge them and they don't like it, especially with their centre back situations at the moment.
Yeah,
you challenge them, they're going to struggle. Well, but they do have the players just to play it through you. So it's difficult for Ralph. Like, do you just sit back and try and defend the goal and try and get him on the counter attack, or do you?
But and the way I look at it, and I know it's what a fan wants to see, and not necessarily a tactical one. But if we kind of played the most defensive we could have possibly in the week, didn't we? I mean, we had our 2 strikers behind the ball in most scenarios. We still conceded 3 goals. Would it not just be a good idea to try and get some goals in, considering their defensive frailties at the moment? Just try and get some goals or some good play and maybe cause a little bit of and I'm not saying a full-out attack, but the fact that we saw they can crumble against Crystal Palace last year. Admittedly, we don't have an Andros Townsend, Andros Townsend belter in there, but just give a bit of challenge, a bit of a reaction to them, and just try and use a bit of an outlet. I mean, maybe even go up there with 4 at the back and just create a bit of an outlet. And worst case scenario, put it in the corners instead of wave upon wave of attack, which, if anything, just puts more focus on our defensive frailties. If we try and play there and retain a bit more of the possession, it may just allow us to take a bit of pressure off that defence. instead of constantly relying on them not to concede.
The problem with that is that I would have done that in the cup instead of the league, because in the cup it doesn't matter in the end. Like
No.
we weren't expected to go through, so you just throw hell to leather at City and see what happens. And in the weekend you've got the league. It's all about goal difference and trying to keep the goal difference low, especially after conceding 9. So like, I would have gone. True. I would have just seen if we were going to go attacking in the cup, what happens, and then try, like, if it works, try again in the league, but switch it up a little bit. And that's the problem. So I would see us trying very similar thing, but I would want to see Adams and Redmond up top instead of Long and Boufal, because I think they would maybe bring a little bit more from the table than Long and Boufal would.
Yeah. I mean, I'd be quite. I think Shane Long plays well away from home, especially as in midweek I don't think he had the best of games, but then again, I don't think I've really heard much coming over on the radio about him. But I just think he's probably our best aerial target man. So if we are going to play this pressing, initiated Route 1 football, is the best way I could describe it. He might be the best option as a target man.
Yeah.
You know, to try and win those flick-ons and get pace through the wing backs, I guess. Is that going to be, or Redmond, Ward-Prowse going inwards?
Your wide attacking. There you go.
Yeah. There we go. I guess that's the tactic. Or, you think Shane Long and Ings are both up front. You know they're both going to work really, really hard. And that's what you'll need against City. You know they're going to retain possession. You know they're going to keep attacking. But if you can apply that pressure up front, I think it could be a decent way to go against it.
It may also be advantageous to actually have the 2 up front instead of just the 1. Because especially with the way that Man City can retain the ball, if you have 2 up there, there's more likely of Man City actually
more
making
pressure
a
on those centre-backs as well.
Because I've done it before where I've run lonely up the front, running across the back four, and it's not fun.
No.
So,
and I also think as well, I think we saw in early Leicester game before it all went to pot, Ings would break away, but because the fact that every other player's behind him at this point, and 5 at the back, it meant he had absolutely no support if he broke away. Yeah. Whereas I think if you have 2 off him, at least you could do a 1-2 and try and get in behind with both Ings and Shane Long. So
there's always been someone supporting him.
Even if we did have to play 5 at the back, I'd quite like to see a 5-3-2 and just have 3 central midfielders soaking up the pressure, not the defence. The midfield soaking pressure, and then have 2 up front. Shane Long for a target, Ings to get in behind. That's what I quite like to see.
Yeah,
I don't think we need to go through the whole team sheet because we kind of know. I think Danso he's up for it. I reckon Danso might not be a bad shout to put him back in the centre back.
The other thing that I would want to ask, and also if you would like to create a poll on this, Tizard, please do.
Sure,
who would you prefer at centre back, Stevens or Vestergaard?
Yeah, I think that would be a very. This podcast comes out, I'll do that.
Because I think Jack Stevens, just because I know Vestergaard's had quite a few poor games in the last couple of weeks, and I would like to see Stevens be given another go, because I mean the defence, the mentality of the defence has dropped so low that maybe Stevens in there would not be a bad thing. Someone who can get on the ball, play out the back, maybe as a bit more of an Eric Dyer role where he drops in and then gets forward instead of one of the main centre backs. But I would quite like to see the same back 3 that started on the weekend. No, not on the weekend. On Tuesday night, play on the weekend. I'd quite like to see that.
Yeah, fair point. Is there anything else really for the Man City game? Because I'm just kind of aware of time. We don't want to go.
I was just thinking. I think tomorrow, by the time this goes out, tomorrow's game, the odds are probably more stacked against us because they did play a weakened side. They didn't even have Sterling in the squad. They had De Bruyne on the bench, but it'll be difficult, especially because if those changes that we're being told about, not in a managerial sense, but maybe the player sense, we'll have players that probably haven't played a lot together. I'll be very interested to see how much the team and the tactic differentiates, like you said, from the game in the cup with the game in the league. But they're probably gonna have some operate with Otamendi and Fernandinho as the two centre backs. So that'd be interesting to have someone that's not that reliable in Otamendi. I know he scored, but he's not a great defender from what we've seen against Wolves, and Fernandinho, who can be a bit reckless, and he's not a centre back. So it'll be interesting to see, especially who we're going to start, who's going to play.
Yeah,
and it'll be difficult, obviously, but from a punditry point of view, from an unbiased point of view, it does look still like one clear direction that's going to go in. So
okay, yeah, I can't really think of too much about that. I just want to make a quick mention that the fact that due to the increase in the popularity of the reaction podcast for Leicester, I don't know whether that's a one-off or that you do generally enjoy the reaction podcasts. It does mean we're nearing almost 1,000 downloads on the podcast.
Hey.
So I think we're up 5. This is episode 25, and to get 1,000 downloads, I mean, I'm pretty happy with that. And we'll let you know when we get there, but we are nearing it. So if you if you can get us those extra couple of downloads, get a mate to listen, download it on two devices. We're not too bothered. Just it'd be really nice to try and get those 1,000 downloads.
We'd be thankful for it.
To be fair, I started accidentally listening to one of our podcasts today. So if you do that,
there you go. That's maybe half our listeners. They go, "Oh, what's this?" I accidentally clicked on the.
Just came on.
So I thought I would mention that quickly just to see if we can try and do that soon, because that would be a nice little thing to get. If we quickly go through the socials or anything like that, Harry, is there?
SaintsPrime on Friday, I'll be obviously advertising the podcast, but also look at the voting thing that I'm going to do.
Yeah.
Especially for our member, for Vestgard or Stevens. Make Mikey happy. Vote for that. We'll get as many votes as possible, and then we'll recap that. The next podcast, probably the podcast after the game, if we're all about. SaintsPrime, I'll put the questions on there. Normally a Wednesday. I'm not sure if I'm going to do it for match reaction games. I'm still yet to decide. But we'll wait and see. And obviously SaintsPrime Pod on the Twitter. People have been active on that Twitter recently.
Yes, we have. There was a gentleman. Do you know what his name was, Tizzles?
Just because Jeremy doesn't have much people on his Twitter, it'll be very, very easy for me to find very, very quickly.
Well, that's the thing. He ended up getting annoyed with Jamie because who wouldn't? Sometimes he is a little bit of a wind-up merchant. But he kind of let the side down a little bit because all three of us watched the game at some point. I watched it on my computer. You two went.
I was at the game.
You went to.
Harry was at the pub.
Harry's at the pub. So yeah, we stuck through it. But Jamie, the first minute of the podcast goes, "Oh yeah, I turned off at 3-0." Like, oh, brilliant analysis.
Cheers, Shane, mate. Yeah, sick one.
But no,
Bradley Hammonds. Thanks very much for listening.
Yeah. But no,
enjoyed it.
We had a chat on Twitter with him, and he's a pretty sound guy. I mean, he got rightly annoyed with Jamie, but I think that happens to everyone at some point. So, fair play to him. He seems pretty sound. We had a chat with him. Yeah. I think we all, in one way or another, I think you replied to him, Tiz. I did it on the account. But
I didn't because I'm not active on Twitter.
No, but yeah, if you do want to ask us a question or anything, we do respond. It's nice to get.
I will most certainly respond.
With an essay.
I love it. Gives us something to do.
I like.
Yeah.
I give the people what they want.
Yeah.
Yeah. Short answer, not an essay.
If it needs an essay, it needs an essay.
Yeah, but no, that is nice. So yeah, get on the socials and ask us questions or anything like that, and we'll make sure we do our best to reply. Yeah. But anyway, I think that's pretty much everything. Is there anything else to report, guys? Or
not that I could think of for us.
Cedric and Gineppo are supposed to be back by Everton.
Ooh, yeah, that should be. They've resumed full training, haven't they? But this week's unlikely, apparently.
How long have we not had Gineppo for? What? Sheffield United.
We're missing our little wonder goal guy.
He's gonna have some feet on his shoulders, isn't he, when he comes back, and everyone's expecting him to rocket one from 40 yards.
Yeah.
I have complete faith in him.
Well, anyway, thank you for listening. Wait, sorry, did I cut you off?
No, I was trying to think of the phrase. I can't think of it.
Well, while you're thinking of that, I'll wrap up the podcast. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you for getting us on our road to 1,000 downloads. It's very much appreciated. Share it with your friends. Follow us on the socials. Make sure you're listening. It's been me, Ollie.
Harry.
Mikey.
Okay, thank you very much for listening. We'll see you next week.
Bye.